The airmen and bomber crews who took to the skies in World War II did so with a wide variety of gear, but none that were quite as iconic as the A-2 flying jacket. Adopted by the U.S. Army Air Corps in May of 1931, the A-2 was a source of pride for the men who wore them. That pride extended to the way that these jackets were personalized with squadron patches and artwork, some of which is on display at the Gettysburg Museum of History.
We're in the office annex of the Gettysburg Museum of History, and today I wanted to bring out some of our A2 jackets. Now currently in the existing museum, we don't have any of the A2 jackets on exhibit yet. There's going to be a whole new exhibit around them, and I wanted to bring out a couple different examples that are in our archives. And I'm going to start with two that have really, in my opinion, good artwork. And I'm going to start with this one. This is a B-17 8th Air Force, and it has really interesting artwork. Now, these guys would get the A2 jackets and they would paint them a lot of times with their aircraft insignia or their names and various other insignia. This has his unit patch here and a beautiful pinup on the side, and it says victory, and he's added some other things, I believe, maybe towards the post-war period. It's named, but besides the really cool artwork on the front, I'm going to spin this around carefully. It has the name of his aircraft, Midnight Run, and a map of Europe with a swastika, and they're bombing it. So it's really interesting artwork. These things rarely survived. A lot of times the paint came off, and we're going to see some various, in the next few minutes of this video, various jackets in various condition. This one definitely has some condition issues, but the artwork is still pretty stunning on this. This is one of the better ones in our collection, and you know, the 8th Air Force ones are the most desirable in the collector's market. It also has a patch for the Army Air Corps on his left sleeve, but it's a really good jacket in my opinion. When I saw it, I had to have it, so we ended up getting that very recently. Now here's another one. This is for a B-25, and this is named as well. It has the guy's name here, unit patch here, and this actually was from the Pacific Theater. And again, the artwork on it is really good. Top pattern, and it has the bombs on here, and apparently they hit a train at some point, but has a beautiful pin-up artwork on it. Some loss to the paint, but again, just a really beautiful jacket. I obtained this from the D-Day Experience Museum. They had gotten this and researched it, hoping it was from the European theater, and since they only interpret the European theater, they decided to let us have this one, and we were really grateful to get it from them. Again, a very exquisite A2 jacket. Here's another A2 jacket, and this is more typically what you see in the collector's market. The painted ones tend to be chipped up and kind of gone now, except for in some exquisite collections in museums, but this is a typical one. They weren't all painted, but this one's special. It would belong to a guy from the 91st Bomb Group, Lieutenant Lane, And he's a friend of mine's uncle, and he put it on loan here. And he was shot down from a B-17, and he ended up being a POW, and at the end of the war he got out and he got his jacket back, which is cool. I don't know if it was worn in a POW camp. If it was, it would have been really late war because it's still in pretty good shape for a prisoner, but he was a prisoner of war. We have a photo of him and his crew here, and my good friend Wes put that on loan here. But this one is not decorated on the back or anything, so it's more typical of what you see. Now, at the beginning of this video, I said this is about A2 jackets, and I kind of lied a little because I wanted to bring out another one. This is actually an M41 jacket, but it fits in to the decorated jackets. It has the guy's wings here, and it has his Army Air Force patch on the sleeve, but it also has artwork on the back, and it has a pinup on there, and it's named inside. It just has a last name, so we haven't, and it's Chambers, so it's not really one that we can research too well. But they not only decorated the A2 jackets, they sometimes decorated other jackets as well, so I wanted to bring this out in this presentation just to show some of the artwork that was on a different type of Army Air Force jacket.
Now here's an A2 jacket that to me is just really interesting and tells a pretty unique story. So here you can see that this belonged to a guy by the name of L.R. Whitmore. And if we look at the patch on Whitmore's jacket, well, we see this rabbit up in the sky, and he's running on the clouds, and he seems to be pulling something behind him. Well, being a pilot or being in a bomber crew in combat was exceptionally dangerous, but the training was dangerous as well. And these men had to go through live fire training. Also, gunnery crews on the ground had to go through live fire training for anti-aircraft units. Well, what they would do is they would have these old A-24s, which also the SBD Dauntless dive bomber, they would send those up into the sky, and they would have these tow targets that they would be pulling behind them that they could get some live fire training with. So again, from the anti-aircraft artillery units and also from the airmen. The WASPs, so the female pilots who served stateside, were involved in this training. And man, that just seems exceptionally dangerous. From what I was able to find, like these targets would be pulled like 20 feet behind the plane while they were being shot at. That is wild. Here's another jacket that is exceptionally interesting. It has some good artwork on it, and you can see like this bull is snorting here. This is from a guy who served in the Mediterranean area in Europe during World War II, and we know his name. So this belonged to a guy by the name of J.D. Baker, and I have a little bit of a bias and a little bit of an affinity towards people named J.D. and have always found them to be exceptional individuals.
As JD said in the last group of jackets that he talked about, the A2s and these decorated jackets weren't just worn by bomber pilots and bomber crew. Fighter pilots wore them as well, and here's a really neat example of a jacket that was worn by a pilot of a P-47 Thunderbolt, and it has his unit patch. Now it's kind of faded out, it's a little difficult to see, and the name is on the inside, but I wanted to turn it around and show you the back art. And again, this is very typical. The paint tends to chip off, but it's from a group called the Butcher Boys. And the reason I wanted to bring this one out and talk about it was, coincidentally, JD and I were in Europe with a World War II vet last year named Ed Cottrell. And he was also in the 9th Air Force, as this guy was, and he was in a P-47 Thunderbolt. And this jacket came up for sale through one of the major military dealers while we were there, and it went live, I believe, while we were having breakfast with Ed. And I was so inspired by his stories, and I really wanted to get this because it was really close to his unit, about as close as you could probably get. So I was able to buy this while we were in Europe, and then it was shipped back. And about a week ago, Ed Cottrell came to the Gettysburg Museum of History, and I was able to show this to him. And he was really happy to see it. And it wasn't his exact squadron or anything, but it was very close, the Butcher Boys. And I asked him if he remembered the Butcher Boys, and he said, oh yeah. So this is one from a P-47 Thunderbolt pilot. Again, they weren't all bomber guys. Now, I want to show you this one. This is one of my favorite A2 jackets of all time. Now, this is not even an Air Corps jacket. Some guys from the airborne units also got a hold of these, usually officers. And you know, we've seen 101st Airborne ones, 82nd Airbornes. This is actually 17th Airborne. And it was the 513th Parachute Infantry Group, and the guy's name was E.A. Schrader, and he was local, meaning Pennsylvania. He was from, I believe, Reading, Pennsylvania. But we got some really neat photos of him wearing it, and I love the patch. Generally, the airborne ones don't have artwork. We do have one in our collection that's really damaged. It probably needs some conservation work. It has a parachute painted on the back. But you rarely see a lot of artwork with the airborne units. You usually just saw the regimental patch. And besides the jacket, we have a really great picture of him when he came home with his newborn infant son. And here's a couple pictures of him, or a picture of him in the European theater, and then another picture with his son. Now, he was wounded at some point. We do have some other paperwork and information about him. I'm going to make a plea at this point. Because of our connection with the 101st Airborne, we do not have an original 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment jacket, A2 jacket, in our collection. We'd really like to get one, so if there's any collectors out there that would consider selling, donating, or loaning to the Gettysburg Museum of History, we would be very grateful for that so we can put it in our airborne exhibit. Also, we've shown you some neat A2 jackets. We are looking for another really well-painted, exquisite artwork 8th Air Force jacket to add to the exhibit we're currently building. So if anybody has one, family member, collector, dealer, whoever, we're looking for one, but we want one with just knock your socks off exquisite artwork. Preferably like something along the lines of the first two that we showed you, but even better. So if you have anything like that, contact us, call the museum, email us, info@gettysburgmuseumofhistory.com.